Hey guys, well, as you know, I've been up to quite a few DIY projects lately, and I'm sure you saw the tarp video from a couple weeks ago, and now I actually just recently finished a DIY ground sleeping quilt, top quilt, and so I figured I would make a video today just kind of showing the details of it and the materials, and then similar to what I did with the tarp, I'll actually put out another video pretty soon following the step-by-step process involved with making one of these quilts. So hopefully anyone that wants to make one can follow along with that video and get a pretty good idea of what goes into it. So anyways, this is my most recent build. It's a top quilt, DIY top quilt, and it is made from Argan Fabric, so it's super light. I really wanted to go all out with this quilt. It's going to be the quilt that I use along the PCT, and I wanted it to support a wide range of temperatures and also to just be light as possible and durable. So what I chose to go with was Argan Fabric, and you can see here on the top the silvery argon. It's a ripstop, super light nylon fabric. I got it from Dutch Wear Gear. I'm actually pretty sure that's the only person that has it. It's a great website. They've got all sorts of good stuff. But I think their best thing is this Argan Fabric, which is 0.67 ounces per square yard. So it's one of the lighter fabrics on the market, and yet it's still ripstop, still downproof, and actually still pretty durable. I think it equates to about a 10 denier fabric. And so you can see on the top side of the quilt, you're actually looking at the bottom inside of it right here. On the top side, I used a black argon, and on the inside, I used a silvery gray argon fabric. For the baffles, I did about 3-inch baffles. So I'm hoping this will take me from around 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit comfortably. So 3-inch baffles, and they are made out of nano-seam netting. That is just like no-seam. It's a little bit lighter. I had some left over, and I think I got it from Thru-hike when I built my last underquilt. So nano-seam netting for the baffles, about 3 inches high, and you can see they're laid out in a karo step fashion. So that is a box fashion with the corners cut out. So all of these boxes of down have the corners joined together so the down can kind of freely flow. Not freely, but it can be moved through the quilt. So let's say your legs are getting cold. You can actually push down through these baffles, down to your legs, so you keep your legs warm and redistribute the down to where it's actually needed. So karo step baffle here, you can see it is a 6/8 design, karo step design. So what that means is for each side of this square, 6 inches, which is the first number, is how much baffle there is. 8 inches is how much free space without a baffle there is. So this is 4 inches of non-baffle, 6 inches of baffle, 4 inches of non-baffle again, and that forms one side of this square here. And you can get a better look from above, kind of what I mean by that, and that's karo step. It's actually, I've said this plenty of times in my past videos, but it saves a lot of time stuffing the down. And it's actually a really nice design because you can move the down around. So, let's see, I cover the material, the baffles. The down inside the quilt is 900 fill power down. I got it from the Down Linen's website, and I got it with a water repellent coating, which is only $5 more on the website. Now, I'm not sure how well this coating is going to work. I've never used it before, and even in general on the internet, there's not a lot of information on it. It's a fairly new product. But I'll report back in some of my future videos, hopefully, and let you know how well it works. As far as I can tell so far, there's no difference between this water repellent down and normal down. Sometimes it's called dry down. But it seems just to be just as lofty and just as fluffy and downy as you would expect. So it's 900 fill power down, and I used exactly 1 pound of this down. So it's got quite a bit of down in it. Some of that, a very tiny bit of that, went into the foot box, and most of it went into the actual quilt here. And you can see it's very lofty. I measured it the other day, and I got about 4.5 to 5 inches of loft on this, and that's quite a bit of loft, especially for 3-inch baffles. So for the dimensions, from head to toe, it's about 76 inches long, and that's a little overbuilt. This whole quilt, I really wanted it to be really roomy and quite large, because with my hammock quilt, I just really didn't have enough room. It was built for the hammock and it worked really well in the hammock, but whenever I went to the ground, it was a little smaller. And that's one of the advantages of a hammock, is that you can build your quilt smaller and still stay warm. But for a ground quilt, you need to make sure you can cover your sides better and you have enough height to get up to your neck. Because with a hammock, you've got the underquilt kind of compensating for the narrower quilt design. But anyways, so I overbuilt this quilt. I really wanted to be comfortable. It's 76 inches long, 56 inches wide at the head, and that it remains 56 inches wide down to 2 feet from the bottom, where it begins to taper down to 44 inches at the foot end. So it's a foot of taper at the bottom 2 feet of the quilt, basically. And you can see that design in the top quilt design theory videos that I posted a little earlier. Those kind of give you the flat layout, what this quilt looks like before it's sewn up. So I decided to go with a sewn in foot box on the quilt, and there's all sorts of opinions on what type of foot boxes people like and what to go with. On my last hammock quilt, I just made the foot box so it could cinch right here, and that worked well for the hammock, but I found on the ground you need to find something that stuffs the cinch hole to keep the air from going in and out. And really, I've never found that I used the hammock or that I used the quilt without having the foot box cinched. I figured maybe I would use it on my bed uncinched or stuff like that, but ultimately, even then, I still put my feet down in a little pocket at the end just because it keeps them warmer, and it's a lot easier to keep the quilt on top of you that way. So for that reason, I decided to go with the sewn in foot box. And you can see here, I've got a good 2 foot of, it's actually a little more than 2 feet, but 2 foot of sewn together quilt. So basically the bottom sides of this quilt are sewn together here, and you can see how they angle apart. You can see the baffles that angle apart from each other. So it's a bit of an angle, and then this is where they begin to separate and form the 2 sides of the quilt. And though this may look like a weak point, it's actually heavily reinforced with quite a bit of stitching here. So there should be no issues of tearing or any coming apart at this seam. Although I'm thinking I may reinforce it even more in the future, maybe put a tie-out point there. But for now, it seems to be holding quite well. So anyways, that's the foot box, and then at the very bottom end here, I've got a circle of material on the inside and the outside, and they are joined by 2 or by 4 baffles here. And those baffles aren't really strictly necessary, but I just put them in. It really wasn't a lot of extra work, and they should help to hold the down here together better. So you can see it's just a circular foot box sewn together, and all this involves really is just cutting a circle of fabric. Really pretty simple, and then you just pin it down to the edges of the bottom of the quilt there. So that's what the foot box looks like. You can see along the edges of the quilt here, every so often in line with the baffles, I put a tie-out point with grosgrain ribbon. So there's one there, you can see one here, and then I finally put one up at the head to go around my neck. And the purpose of these 2 down here is that sometimes when you're sleeping on a sleeping pad, the quilt has a tendency to kind of pop up and let a draft in. I've never found that to be a problem, but if it is, what you can do, you can see I've got the tie-outs on the other side of the quilt. You can tie these together with a bungee or some type of cord underneath your sleeping pad, and that will actually keep the quilt from getting any drafts. It'll keep it from popping up and allowing air in underneath your arms or your chest. So those will just be tied together. I don't ever do that because I just kind of tuck the quilt under my body and that holds it just fine. Now on that same note, along the top of the quilt, I've got these two tie-outs that you can tie to each other to kind of keep the quilt wrapped around your neck, and your head will stick out through this hole obviously. And so that's one way to keep it there. I also have sewn in a channel on the very edge of the entire length of the quilt here. And what that will allow me to do is run a rope through there or some type of cord and then cinch it down. So I can cinch it around my neck kind of like you would cinch the hood on a mummy bag. And that will actually keep it tighter around my neck, keep out the drafts. I never do that either, but I like to have the option just in case I want to do that. But honestly, I just tuck the quilt under my shoulders, wrap it around my neck, and I've never had a problem with drafts at all. Just wear a warm hat when it gets really cold, and that's really all you need. So I'll go ahead and flip it over here. You can see it's just super light. It just picks up all the wind. And this is what the top of it looks like. You can see the square karo step baffling, and you can see kind of little diamonds where all the pockets join together. So as far as the weight of this quilt goes, the final finished weight on it is 21.2 ounces. So that is 1 pound, 5.2 ounces. So that's pretty crazy. It's under 1.5 pounds, and it's actually got a full pound of down in it, actually a little tiny bit more. But so what that means is it's the weight of the shell and the baffles is around 5.2 ounces. So that's pretty crazy as far as weight goes for this entire shell. That really does not weigh very much. And that's just one of the benefits of the argon and the nano CM fabrics. They're just so light. But yeah, I think I've covered everything I need to cover here. So hope you enjoyed, and I will be posting the step-by-step video soon. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching. See you later.